Welcome to the Motoring Podcast, your weekly discussion of motoring news. This is episode 599 on Tuesday, the 15th of October, 2024. Hello, I'm Alan, and once again I look at this and I go, oh, menu, I've completely forgotten about the menu. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue and pretend we don't ever normally do a menu, and I'm going to hit the follow-up, of which there is a metric something ton. Mostly thanks to the European Commission approving tariffs on Chinese EVs. Now, there's going to be a whole bunch of stories linked in the show notes. I'm just going to click through them a little bit and just sort of try and pull out a few salient points. But essentially, European Commission has voted to make large tariffs on Chinese-made electric cars permanent. These are the ones we went through a few weeks ago where we pointed out that the percentage of the tariff depends on the amount of investment and vehicle building that each of those organizations are doing in Europe. So to pull out an example, SAIC, owner of MG, which failed to cooperate at all, is being hit with a 35.3% tariff. BYD 17.9%, Geely 19.9%. To give some flavors there of just the kind of the kind of ratio there is. The fee could go up to 45%, and they're going to be applied for the next 5 years. To try to counter this, initially China made a proposal for a €30,000 minimum price for Chinese-made EVs being sold in Europe. So that they weren't just coming straight in and sort of undercutting everyone, but that was declined. At the other end of the scale, many of the larger EU-based luxury vehicle or bigger vehicle manufacturers, JLR, for example, I'm sure many of the other larger luxury goods are a bit worried because the government is investigating raising tariffs on those. I should point out all the way through this that the German manufacturers have been saying that really they don't want to be doing this. They shouldn't be putting these tariffs on Chinese cars. Possibly because flip side, the stuff going out to China where they export to is ripe for being tariffed in retaliation. As it is, it's not just cars though. China has decided that it's going to investigate EU cars, and it could increase those tariffs on imported petrol cars with large capacity engines. That's what I've just said essentially. And the other thing is they have slapped a levy on French brandy. So yes. Importers brandy from the EU have to pay a deposit of as much as 39% of the value of the brandy, effective from October the 11th. So yes, it's turning into a bit of a trade war. I say the German manufacturers who were opposed to these tariffs, BMW shares fell 3%, Mercedes-Benz Group dropped 2.6%. Next up in follow-up, the date for former Volkswagen CEO Martin Winterkorn's trial related to DIESELGATE has been suspended due to his poor health. According to Automotive News Europe, all the hearings, the forthcoming hearings have been cancelled because Winterkorn won't be fit to attend over the coming months. He's 77, and I'm sure this is incredibly stressful as well. And some of you are going to say, "Well, you should have thought about that first, shouldn't you?" But all the same, this is going to be a tough one on anyone. Let's see what happens with that. I wouldn't be surprised if practically nothing happens. Certainly over the next while. I don't know quite what will be gained by dragging this out. I would imagine that ill health will cause this to go away. Last little piece of sparklingly happy follow-up. Fiat's 500 EV was originally meant to have a production freeze for a month. That was up until October the 13th. The pause will now end on the 1st of November, and this is because of generally a slump in demand. 500e is awesome. It's really good. I really like it, but it is relatively compromised and relatively expensive just by virtue of the size of a 500, and then the price is pretty high. So yes, but they're investing to try and combat this, as well as incorporating a hybrid version, the 500 Hybride. Fiat is supposed to be investing about 100 million euros or 84 million pounds into developing a new battery for the 500e as well. Well, that's going to significantly increase the range of the 500e while significantly reducing the cost. As I say, 500e is one of those cars that I'm happy is on the road. So I do hope that gets sorted out. New news, which it's a little bit old news right now because obviously with Andrew being busy with family stuff and me being on planes last week, we skipped a week. And thank you to those of you who've checked that we're okay, by the way, and just checked in to make sure it was okay. A really unusual thing for us to have to do, just a combination of stuff. Taking place. But yes, everybody else has had a bit of a run-up and a bit of a warm-up at the September new car registration figures. There's been a lot of chat about September's new car registration figures. They were... the new car market is up 1% to 275,239 units. September's meant to be an important month and one where there's a high, it's meant to be a high turnover. It's a new registration month. 74 plate came out. And yeah, it hasn't been awesome. It's worth pointing out that the market, there's been a lot of stuff said, and most of it, quite frankly, is rubbish. Especially when it came to privately registered diesels and stuff. It's worth mentioning there's always going to be a level with diesels where there is a need for them. People do need to buy vehicles that can tow, that are cars, can carry people, can tow stuff, can carry stuff. And there is a part of the market where that is still very, very valid. So people are generally going to buy those, and because the numbers for diesels have become really quite small, then they're going to go. Then there is going to be fluctuation in that, and when you see fluctuate, it doesn't take, as we know from when we go through the numbers for all the manufacturers, for some it can be a very high percentage ups and downs, but that doesn't actually mean a lot of cars. It can mean 10, 15, 20 cars. The other thing, of course, is that if people are buying diesels, they're probably buying diesel cars or SUVs and these kind of things privately. Any company is going to sidestep all of that, and if you need to tow stuff, if you need to carry stuff, then you're going to end up with a pickup truck, and it's going to be a commercial vehicle, because then it's not caught in all of these kind of things. The tax rules are different. As far as benefit in kind and all of these sorts of things. So it's going to be a different setup completely. So those numbers with diesels, great, well done, anti-EV people, because, we've all given up with a war over whether you have an Android or an Apple phone. So now it's EV or not EV. Then, because there's always got to be another faction somewhere. You might notice I'm a little bit sick of American politics at this point, and that's where that's mostly coming from. But yes, lots of challenges there. When it does come to EVs, lots of people saying that EVs, it's the price isn't a factor in people choosing new EVs, and yet the manufacturers and the dealers are discounting them very heavily. It is cheaper for them to discount the vehicles new than it is for them to pay the fines if they don't reach the appropriate numbers and percentages at the end of the year. The fines per vehicle for over the CO2 limity things, which I can't think of right at the minute, are prohibitive. So hence there's an awful lot of discounting to keep moving vehicles. Again, government help to buy them. Yeah, you're subsidising essentially a luxury good. which people don't necessarily need. And I think the challenge here isn't, there's lots of people going, oh, the manufacturers aren't ready. Oh, the infrastructures aren't ready. I think the problem is the customers aren't actually ready, and cars are expensive. And right at the minute, there's so much uncertainty around the place, around this budget of doom that's coming from the UK government, around the US elections in November, that quite frankly, nobody's buying or selling stuff if they can get away with it. That's really what the case is. Anyway, I've done lots of talking about the background. I said that it was new car market's up 1%. That basically is a rounding error over last year. 275,239 units. 56,387 battery electric vehicle registrations in September, and even the SMMT says that this was driven by massive manufacturer discounting. That means year-to-date market share 17.8%, with 18.5% forecast by the end of the year, which is still below the zero emission mandate. Performance in September was the best since 2020, but that's still 19.8% lower than pre-COVID September 2019. So do remember that. It's still, everybody's going, oh, look, it's up. It's still way down, way down. Majority of registrations went to fleet, 54.2%, and with obviously private coming in next, 43.7%. Fleet was up 3.7%. Private was down 1.8%. As far as fuel put in your vehicle, then again, diesel was down 7%, sitting now at just about 17,500 registrations. So that's a 6.4% market share. So as I say, it doesn't take that many to make significant jumps up and down. Battery electric vehicles for September, by the way, a 20.5% market share, and 56,387 vehicles registered. So smaller change there is a much bigger number of vehicles. Petrol down 9.3%, still holds 50.1% market share. Plug-in hybrids, 24,486, 8.9% market share, and hybrids 39,017, 14.2% market share. Plug-in hybrids up 32%, hybrids up 2.6% in September. The top models list. I do like that you've renamed that SMMT. I know we say it every month, but we spent 9 years of it saying the wrong thing, so we might as well celebrate its correctness nowadays. Between number 10 and number 1, number 10 here is at 3,974 units. Number 1 is at 7,482. So not a huge spread. Obviously, segmentation, loads and loads of models and submodels and sub-submodels altogether do mean that all the numbers are very close and very low. So at number 10, Volkswagen Golf, 3,974. Number 9, the Ford Kuga, 4,066. Number 8, the Volkswagen Tiguan. Number 7, the Volkswagen Polo. Number 6, the Nissan Qashqai. Joint number 4. How's about that? Don't get that very often, with 5,799 units apiece. The Tesla Model Y and the Hyundai Tucson. Number 3, the Nissan Juke, 6,025. Number 2, the Ford Puma, 6,681. And number 1, the most registered new vehicle in the UK for September 2024 was the Kia Sportage with 7,482 units. Just find myself the spreadsheet of doom. Here we go. Not a big market change overall, and a fair bit of sort of struggle amongst the brands. So let me start at the top and go down with the downers. So Abarth down 33%, 191 units. Bentley down 42%. Citroen down 19.5% almost. DS down 15.6%, 211 vehicles registered for DS. Really not looking great there. Fiat down 28%, Ford down 23%, 15,875 units registered. GWM Aura down 44%, 116 units registered. Ineos down 60%, 61 units. Maserati down 19%. MG down 29%. I find where all the MGs are. All the MGs are around Perth in Scotland. I so many of them. I mean, since in the last year or so, just the percentage, the visible percentage on the road, is really quite significant. Despite that 29% down, that's still 8,959 units registered. That is only 40 fewer than Land Rover did in the same period. Porsche down 20%. Subaru down 33.7%, 366 units. Suzuki down 16%. Vauxhall down 30%, 9,347 units. So only slightly ahead of MG. And other imports down 17.62%. In the good news, let's start at the bottom because that's where I've scrolled to. Volvo up 42%, 9,384 units. So more just double checking. Yeah, more Volvos than Vauxhalls registered last month. Tesla up 19%, Smart up 335%, Skoda up 32%, Polestar up 113.82%, 2,429 registered. Land Rover up 47%, Jeep up 149% with 1,289 registered. Hyundai up 20%, just under 15,000. Honda up 60%. Well done, Honda. Genesis up 30%. Cupra up 15%. And BYD, top of the tree in terms of percentages, 1,150 vehicles registered, up 395.69%. And again, I was surprised how many of those I saw in Scotland last week. So, just some manufacturers really not. I mean, Vauxhall, not in a great place. Ford, not doing brilliantly. I mean, their equivalent 5,000 units down on last year. September last year, so not wonderful. Not wonderful. Obviously, as a result of all of this, the car makers are trying to ramp up pressure on the government for EV sales subsidies. The UK government is telling us that everything is awful. So I don't know. I think you'll be doing quite well to get that. I don't really agree with them. As I say, I do think it's subsidising essentially a luxury good in a lot of cases when, if you've got a car that's already working, it doesn't make a lot of sense either financially or environmentally to chop it in for a brand new one. It's the resources have already been used. Do just, move on from there. European car makers at the same time have been putting out a whole slew of profit warnings, thanks to weak demand and rising costs, not just in the UK, but across everywhere. Reuters has published an article, it'll be linked in the show notes, that runs through which manufacturers have been releasing profit warnings, and quite frankly, the answer is all of them. So, but yes, it goes through in more detail that frankly I'm not prepared to drag you through in a hopefully moderately light-hearted podcast about that. But if you would like to read more, there will be a link to that Reuters article in the show notes as always. A bit more change, obviously as part of everything. Then Stellantis, which is trying to shake up its leadership. So Carlos Tavares will retire, in inverted commas, in this Autopian article I've linked to. I think he will retire in 2026 as Stellantis shakes up its leadership. I think that that Carlos Tavares is necessarily doing the greatest job in the world. Well, he's not doing a bad job, but it's just like trying to herd cats. I mean, so many different types of sub-brand in different places, each with different niches. I mean, there's a lot of commonality. I mean, Andrew regularly jokes about the similarity between, panels on Peugeot, Citroens, Fiats, etc. But yeah, not great. So, according to Stellantis, John Elkann, the chairman of the board of directors, has said, "The board of directors is unanimous in its support of Carlos Tavares and for the decisive changes announced today. We're confident these steps will simplify our organisation to strengthen our leadership team as they work to restore the company's performance to industry-leading levels." Wonderful piece of buzzword bingo there. The company also confirmed that the formal process to identify a successor to Carlos Tavares when he retires at the conclusion of his CEO term in early 2026 is already underway. This is being led by a special committee of the board chaired by John Elkann and will complete its work by the fourth quarter of 2025. So there we go. So that's the plan. I mean, let's just see just what happens. There's a couple of other switcheroos. Jeep CEO Antonio Filoso is promoted to North American COO, whilst also continuing to serve as head of Jeep. Jean-Philippe Imperato will take over as CEO of Europe, replacing Uwe Hogenschurz, who will leave the company. CFO Natalie Knight is also leaving the company and will be replaced by Doug Osterman, formerly COO, Chief Operating Officer of Stellantis in China. So there's a whole load of things being shuffled around. So we shall see what happens. The Utopian also includes a quote from Tavares himself, saying, "During this Darwinian period for the automotive industry, our duty and ethical responsibility is to adapt and prepare ourselves for the future better and faster than our competitors to deliver clean, safe, and affordable mobility. The newly appointed leadership team members will make their valuable contributions to our overall team's determination to tackle the challenges ahead, reinforcing and accelerating our transformation to become the preferred mobility tech company. I'd like to thank everyone who contributed to lay the foundations for Stellantis' future success," which quite successfully takes a good few tens of words to say, not an awful lot, but there we go. It's obviously not overly bitter and twisted, at least not in public yet. At the same time as this, Stellantis is getting a $146 million subsidy for a Spanish battery plant. Stellantis had looked to build their own battery plant in Europe, but what they're doing is they're teaming up with CATL, a Chinese battery specialist, and they're going to build it. To build the battery building complex near its plant in Zaragoza. That makes EVs, including the E208, Opel Corsa E, and the Lancia Ypsilon as well. Supposedly, this project will create around 3,000 jobs, require an investment of nearly 2.5 billion euros. The grant that's coming is part of a government aid program from the European Union Pandemic Relief Funds, and it's hoped that this aid will convince Stellantis to confirm its project, which would of course help Spain and its car building aims. There is another subsidy for a different battery making factory in Sagunto in eastern Spain. They're looking to raise it to 152 million from 98 million, and it is for Volkswagen Group's battery making subsidy of PowerCo as well. NORTHVOLT, meanwhile, one of its subsidiaries is filing for bankruptcy after its project has been pulled. I'm trying not to use the term gigafactory here. The battery factory in northern Sweden had planned for a tripling of capacity, but it got cancelled last month. The board of NORTHVOLT cancelled it. So that subsidiary has filed for bankruptcy as the rest of NORTHVOLT looks to consolidate its operations and what it's doing. So not a lot of good news there from NORTHVOLT. Last of the new news this week was something that came out just at the end of last week, saying that brake manufacturer BREMBO is going to buy suspension manufacturer Öhlins Racing for $405 million. I thought this was quite interesting. Of course, Öhlins is going to be acquired from one investment group by another investment group, but it's all going to be paid for in cash. Though it seems like a sensible marriage and grouping. It means that the pairing of them can become a sort of one-stop shop, unsprung weight related manufacturer. But seriously, around suspension and braking, I mean that should make it very easy for organizations or for them to optimize what they do, and also for car manufacturers, bike manufacturers, truck manufacturers, race teams, all sorts of things, to basically have a one-stop shop where they can go and just say, well, actually, look, we understand how this all works together. You can have this solution, this solution, this solution. We can tie it and tune it in these particular ways. So that's kind of cool. From a racing point of view, it's very, very sensible. The acquisition itself is expected to close in early 2025. That takes us all to Gilt Minute, a quick break in the show where we ask for TAVARES financial support to keep the lights on and the hosting running. And if you feel that Motoring Podcast worth a small consideration every month, then you can become a patron. Different levels of patron include different levels of commitment from us to you, including being able to watch the show recorded live. We also have a small range of merchandise in our spring store, from stickers to mugs and t-shirts. If you don't have any spare cash, and we completely understand, then you can help us by following for free from our podcast player to receive every show as they're released, and by liking and rating the show in whatever way your podcast supplier lets you. If you've done all of that, and some of you do, so thank you very much, then the last thing you can do is to recommend us to your friends or colleagues, and yes, many of you do that as well. So thank you all so much for all of your help, time, and support. I'm going to go small on the new car news this week. Paris Motor Show opened and unveiled a bunch of stuff yesterday. We'd quite like the ability to discuss some of it between Andrew and I for your listening delectation. So internet connectivity allowing, then that will be done towards the end of this week, and may well be number 601 whenever that comes out in the middle of next week. So fingers crossed for that. We'll have a little bit of a look through that. Just let the dust settle, everything be unveiled, and actually have time to consume things rather than, well, because we're simply not in a position to chase clicks like a mad thing. A couple of little things which are kind of fun here. First up, Kia. Kia, according to the email I received, has done something for the lols, and those lols are to do with retro modding or resto modding a 1996 Kia Pride LX with an EV powertrain. So they've taken out the 60 brake horsepower 1.3 litre petrol engine, and it has been to Oxfordshire-based firm Electrogenic, and that's been swapped for a 107 horsepower electric motor, still mated to the original 5-speed manual gearbox, to, and here I quote, ensure maximum driver engagement, which is, given it's an original Kia Pride, alrighty. Kia says the Pride EV should do 0 to 60 in about 8 seconds, but they will be verifying that later this year. It's got two 10 kilowatt hour battery packs instead of the fuel tank, and that means it has about 120 miles of range in eco mode, although using the sport mode will reduce that. The fact it has a sport mode makes it the first Kia Pride ever to have a sport mode. At the same time, they have pointed out that it is also the first Kia Pride that can quite happily burn through its front tyre. It takes about 6 hours to recharge at up to 3.3 kilowatt hours. It's got the original instrumentation, all that. It's got really cool It has really nice interior, grey cloth with the lime green piping to echo the EV6 GT, which is just completely the other end of the scale from the Kia Pride. It really is quite impressive how they managed to do that. So this really is a celebration of Kia's 80th birthday. Kia itself started out as a bicycle component manufacturer in 1944, began building cars in 1974, and the first one was exported to the UK, complete with white wall tyres, if you'll remember, in 1991. I think that's really cool. I like things being done just for fun, and this has been done really nicely. And yeah, I think that's a lot of fun. Thank you, Kia, for just doing something for the lols. Vauxhall, flicking back to the SMMT figs earlier on, Vauxhall is continuing to push to make electric cars more affordable by slashing the prices of Astra and Corsa EVs. So if you've just bought an Astra and Corsa EV, I'm so sorry. The ultimate trim version of the Astra Sports Tourer has been reduced by almost £5,000 to £40,695. The Griffin trim now starts at £36,195, down by £1,000. Astra hatchback up to £3,865 off. Middle range is a bit less than that. Corsa electric starting price is still £26,895. But the design and GS grades have been sliced by £3,400 and £2,850 respectively. The ultimate has been reduced by £4,150. So let's just see what happens. The Frontera SUV is going to start from £23,495, and the Mokka has already been cut by £7,115 to £29,495. So let's just see what happens with that. Vauxhall are really saying we need incentives to drive customer demand in the consumer market. Well, at least we see that they're trying to do their bit in reducing the prices. But they were very high prices to start with. I think everybody commented on that when those vehicles were released. Last one in this very abridged new car news, the Caterham Project V sports car. So the first prototype will be driving next year, and it's going to be powered by an ultra power dense, according to Autocar, whatever that means. I think it means small but powerful. Yamaha motor on the rear axle. Details have yet to be confirmed, but the concept is said to have a single motor giving 268 horsepower at the rear wheels for a sub 4.5 second 0 to 62. Sorry, it is. I just wanted to double check. Apologies. The hesitation there was I was trying to check that if it was electric or not. But yes, it is. It is a Yamaha electric powertrain. So yeah, it's with a cutting edge e-axle. So we shall see just what happens there. But that should be a lot of fun. These have been released and put into things before. Subaru's 1058 horsepower STI E-RA Racer. Goodness knows how you're meant to pronounce that. I mean, it's STI ERA Racer, which is targeting a Nürburgring time of just 6 minutes 40 seconds. There's 4 of them, similar specs. So let's just see. Lola Formula E team is going to be Yamaha's a technical partner of. Is also going to be using similar. So let's just see quite what happens. It should be fun to see. Point of interest this week: if you are looking for a wholesome lift to your mood, then RECEIVERSHIP 2 happened the other week, and I don't know about anyone else, but I didn't see anybody disparaging it at all on the social medias. Not that I've been spending as much time on the social medias, but lots and lots of positive comments. What a nice time people had, how well it was organised, all of that kind of fun stuff. If you would like to see more and get a virtual tour of what you missed, then Hubnut himself has on his channel. Just over or just under an hour and 10 minutes worth of the tour of sort of 850-ish awesome and varied cars. Go have a little bit of a look. Again, lots of obscure stuff, lots of interesting stuff. And yeah, as I said, so many positive comments about it, about Rustival too, just as there were about Rustival. So definitely one for the list, I think, if you can get tickets. To get tickets for it. Its aim is to be as inclusive as possible, so it would only be numbers, not cost. I'm sure that would be the limiting factor there. But yeah, have a little bit of a look at that. Consider liking and subscribing to Ian's content. A brilliant little video about the BMW Isetta came out just the other day, Sunday, sometime evening for you, I think. And it was one of my favourites. Again, Ian does obscure and classic cars so well. This week's list of the week came from Autocar, and it is the greatest supercars that never made it to production. There are 46 slides here. There are some very cool things from Jaguar XJR13 to, I don't know, some of the craziest Giugiaro and Bertoni concept cars from Italy in the 1960s and 70s. But the one I'm going to choose is actually the one that's the cover slide. It is the BMW Nazca C2. Let me just remind myself of of exactly the story, because I didn't make a point of clicking to the story. Okay. Well, they've done the old bait and switch on us there. So generally, let's be more generic and say the BMW Nazca, the M12. So it was 300 horsepower, 5-litre V12 from the 750i, and then subsequently the 850i. Mid-engine supercar, kind of rounded version of the BMW M1. There was a Nazca C2, and then there was a C2 Spider as well. It was kind of family of three of them. I wonder where they are now, because they're very cool. They're from sort of one of the sort of peak BMW era. I do think that these are awesome. I couldn't remember actually if it was an in-house design or if it was one of the Italian styling houses, but no, it's been credited here to BMW themselves. So super cool. Lastly this week, and finally is it involves a couple of friends of the show. Neil M. Briscoe has written a piece called The Drive, and it's talking about John McCormick and strictly speaking, his wife's Ford Focus S, how it came to be scanned for Forza, and why they ended up asking a chap in Northern Ireland if they could scan his car instead of going to Ford or whatever. It's all written there. Well worth a good 15 to 20 minutes of your time. If John's name sounds familiar, then he is at Stripey Miata on Twitter and the various socials. So yes, you will know. You will probably know of him. If not, well then you do now. Really interesting to find out how these things happen, just what the process is, all of these kind of things. The secret seems to be make sure you take lunch with you. Yeah, that's one of the chief takeaways for me anyway. Someone who could be doing with a few less lunches. But yeah, I think that's kind of us for this week. No particular parish notes. Hopefully back as normal next week. I flipping hope so, because of course it's number 600 next week. And then we've got a whole bunch of stuff to come as well. We have been like swans or ducks or whatever. We have been paddling away under the water to try and get a whole bunch of stuff prepped, but to greater or lesser extent or levels of success right at the minute. But we'll get there. We'll get there. Anyway, don't forget now and then, you can give us any feedback, share your thoughts with the show at Motoring Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, on Facebook, and on the contact page of motoringpodcast.com, the hub of all our activities. Remember, if you can support us financially via Patreon, please leave a review and rating on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube, or however your podcast app lets you do such a thing. Andrew, not here. Best ways to get in touch with him is to search for Cracked Windscreen on socials. He tends to be on Mastodon and LinkedIn more than anything else. For me, I tend to occasionally go into Twitter, get depressed by the depressiveness of it all, and then clear off to Blue Sky. In any case, on any of the socials, I'm at AJP Bradley. That's BRADLEY. As I say, we'll be back very soon. Until then, I've been Alan Bradley, and he who isn't here has been Andrew Close. And safe motoring.